Love hanging out with your true crime enthusiast friends talking about cold cases and missing people. Maybe even having the opportunity to ask questions to some of the top forensic scientists, law professionals, and even your favorite podcast hosts? Then sit back and listen to our friend Amy Hassebrock, local true crime writer of the Skeleton Key Chronicles, share the highlights of this year's Crimecon. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cincinnati Cabinet of Curiosities Hometown Haunts podcast. I'm Kat Cloco, and with me in the shadows, as always, are Christina and Jen. And tonight, we welcome back Amy Hassebrock. Hello! Welcome back, Amy.
Hey, thanks for having me again. Excited to be here tonight.
Yes, and I'm excited to talk about crime with you and true crime because you attended Crimecon 2021.
I did. It was an awesome event. This year, they opted to hold the event virtually since the in-person event for 2020, which was to take place in Orlando, was canceled. They did a virtual package for the event that was held this past weekend in Austin. It was at the Fairmont Hotel, which is a really nice state-of-the-art hotel in Austin. And I was a little nervous about the virtual platform because I've never attended a convention virtually before, but I have to say I was super impressed and it kept me busy all weekend long. Starting Friday at noon, I attended different symposiums all the way through Sunday afternoon. And it kept my interest up and the Q&As were amazing. And I was really shocked at how great it was. And I'm telling you, I may attend this virtually in the future if it's an option, because I felt like it was really streamlined and less chaotic than a normal convention where you're running from ballroom to ballroom and maybe getting sidetracked with a little bit of, friends and frivolity and maybe not attending as many conferences as you want. But I love this. It kept me on pace and on schedule. And I really enjoyed the virtual aspect of it this year.
Yeah. So for our listeners who may not know, before we get into the actual virtual bit, a little bit of the history of Crimecon and what it is. I know they advertise as being the world's #1 true crime event, and I would agree with that statement.
Yeah, I think it might be one of the world's only true crime events on this scope because it is so big. I know that there are some smaller crime conventions that are usually more like historical based or, specialized genres. But as far as the big heavy hitters in the true crime world, CrimeCon brings them out in spades. I mean, I know their first event was in 2017 in Indianapolis, and that was
how I
followed
missed
by
that, I don't know. Did you go to
that
it?
is no, I did not. That's the year I found out about it. And it was kind of strange. It was just sheer happenstance. I found out about it. My husband and I were at Mayfest and we were sitting at one of those long tables with about 8 chairs and we're having a snack and having a beer. And this couple walks up and I hear, this girl talking to her partner. Oh, I'm so bummed out. I can't believe we missed the flight, blah, blah, blah. They sat down next to us. And you know how when people just sit next to you, you kind of hear their combo. And she looks over at me and she's like, have you ever heard of CrimeCon before? And I'm like, no, but that sounds super interesting because this is when I was just starting my blog. And she's like, oh my gosh, yes, it's in Indianapolis this weekend. Our flight got delayed. We can't fly out till tomorrow. So we were just looking for something to do. So we came here tonight. And she started telling me all about it. And I was like, oh my God. She's like, Nancy Grace is going to be there. Keith Morrison's going to be there, and she's going off with all the names, Josh Mankiewicz, some of the people from 2020 and 48 Hours. And I was like, wow, that sounds really, really cool. And I didn't really know it was an Oxygen event too. Oxygen has become heavily their main sponsor. So as the years have gone by, you see more and more Oxygen programming and promoting more of their shows and, their host and talent and whatnot. But the first one was in Indy in 2017. And then there was one in Nashville, which is another kind of close by venue. And then there was New Orleans. And then there was Orlando, which was canceled because of COVID. And then now Austin this year. So, which was over June 4th through 7th weekend.
And I think next year's in Las Vegas.
It is Las Vegas, and
Yeah.
then there's one in the UK too this fall.
And
So
there's
they
a
do their whole.
cruise.
Yeah,
Did
I
you see
know.
the
Crime.
cruise?
I did.
Talk about that one later, but I was just like, what? It's in October. So,
I know. When I saw that, I couldn't help but think of all the cases where people have gone missing on cruises, thrown overboard, and the like.
yeah,
So,
yeah. So, CrimeCon before COVID struck was like your average Christina from the dark is going, we need to go on the cruise. Um, yeah, it was like a lot of other conferences where you had guest speakers, you would attend the panels, and then they had book signings and I don't know, and I know they have a podcast area because you had like True Crime Garage and a whole bunch of other well-known crime junkies. First
yeah.
48 hours, I a lot of my podcast feed also were at CrimeCon, and that's how it usually worked. How did it work this year?
Well, it was very similar. Podcast Row was an area of the actual hotel there where they would have all the podcasters and they were staggering their podcasts. They would start around 10 a.m. every day and run till about 11 o'clock at night. So
Mm-hmm.
there were, various Q&As, live podcast recordings. Nancy Grace did a live taping with audience interaction. Like you mentioned, True Crime Garage and some of the other ones were doing recordings there. They also had a whole separate set of podcasters that were appearing virtually only, wherein those podcasters didn't actually come to Austin. They were just taping from their houses and operating on the virtual platform. So, as a virtual pass holder, I was able to see both. But obviously, if you were in person at
Mm-hmm.
Austin, you couldn't see the virtual people, I guess, unless you were on your phone or had a virtual pass. But
Right.
no shortage of podcasters, that is for sure. And this was all
Yeah,
happening while the other
there's
things were
so
going
many.
on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there were so many. And who were the guests for this year? Who did you see
Okay,
or
there were
watch?
so many guests this year. There were 3 stages that were all going off at the same time. So when you got your schedule, you really had to pick and choose who you wanted to see. I think they did a really good job kind of staggering the talent across the stages to really um, it was kind of easy for me every time I was able to quickly pick who I wanted to see. I didn't mull over a lot. Um, my partner was there, Laura Brand, who I'm assisting in the Bittaker and Norris investigation. Obviously, I watched her presentation. Dr.
Mm-hmm.
John White, who's a leading serial killer expert, I watched his presentation. Um, the John Green and Body Movin' from Don't F with Cats. I don't know if you've heard about that documentary. They were
I
there.
haven't.
That was a packed house. That was really the what seemed to be the most popular presentation of the evening. Nancy Grace was there. Chris Hansen was there. Derek Lavasseur was there from he had a few shows actually. Breaking Homicide was one that was really good, where he was studying cold cases and he kind of dove into that, the happy face killers.
Mm-hmm.
um let's see, Beth Holloway was there, Natalie Holloway's mom.
Oh
Kim
wow.
Goldman, Ron Goldman's sister was there. Dr. Phil was there. Gil Carrillo from the Night Stalker
Oh
documentary that dropped on Netflix. He was kind of the
yeah.
cop that was he was there. Oh my gosh. I mean, it really goes. Carrie Rawson, Raider BTK's daughter, was there
Yeah.
promoting her book, and she did a great symposium. The Delphi um, victim, Liberty, her
Mm-hmm.
family was there. Now, the other little
Yeah.
girl, her family wasn't present, but Liberty's family was there. So
If
Libby's
I remember
aunt,
right, her sister's very loud about solving that Delphi case.
yes, her sister was there, her cousin, and her grandma. And that was the family of Libby German. And it was interesting too, because they said a few people had come up to them during CrimeCon and said, either I thought this case was already solved, or wow, I haven't heard about this case. So it was interesting, when they were on the stage doing the Q&A, they're like, it's things like that that make us really eager to come to events like this so we can really spread the word for people that really don't know that much about the case. But
Yeah, because
I mean,
like the
there were
Delphi
so many
case,
people there.
yeah, and all these cases are ever evolving, especially if they're still open. So
Right.
yeah. Um I know I learned about CrimeCon not in 2017, I think it was around 2018, because
Mm-hmm.
the hosts of the Murder Squad, which are Billy Jensen and Paul Holes, are like constant guests at a CrimeCon. So that's how I knew about it, but I didn't realize it was in Indianapolis until it was too late.
Yeah,
And
ditto.
but yeah, so with the VIP package, how did that work? I'm curious, and how did they get, like, if people are watching, were they able to submit questions live to the panels?
Absolutely. The platform that this virtual event was held on was called Hop In. And it was
Okay.
really an interesting platform. It had, you could go to rooms and have conversations just like you were milling about at CrimeCon. Say you were in a Q&A and you have your profile pic there, you have your name, so you can really identify who's who. If you are vibing with somebody or you guys are kind of interested in the same stuff, you could go to your own area and discuss things further if you were so inclined. Yes,
Hmm.
there was the whole virtual Q&A aspect of it. It was really nice too because you could just put it on the big screen and you didn't have to mess with your phone or your laptop. Um, yeah, I mean, it was super easy to use, no snafus in terms of, uh, I don't know. I was shocked when it was virtual. I'm like, is this going to be a pain navigating in
Yeah.
between where I want to go and whatnot? But it really wasn't. They had the schedule in a thing called Sketch. It was another app that you
Okay.
could download, and that hooked in with Hop In, and you could just bounce around and go wherever you wanted to go.
So was it, did you attend the the you were talking about them before the show, the home, was it house arrest versions that they did last year? Did you get to
No, I
attend
did
any of
not.
those?
I did not. I
Okay.
had tickets for the Orlando event, to actually fly to Orlando, and then sadly that was canceled. That was the one that my partner Laura was going to speak at originally, and then they
Okay.
brought everyone kind of from Orlando and kind of
Okay.
pocketed them with the current talent for 2021. So I feel like this was probably like a lot of people, as far as guest goes at this particular crime con, because I think they were trying to kind of sandwich the 2020 crowd with the um, 2021 crowd. So there
Yeah.
were plenty of speakers to go around, that's for sure.
Yeah. And there were some people that were able to attend locally in Austin.
Yeah, a lot of people flew down, got a
Oh
room at the
wow.
Fairmont. Yeah, that's what I was going to do originally. I was going to fly to Orlando. I had my hotel and everything booked, ready
Yeah.
to go, but wah wah. But
Yeah.
yeah, and like I mentioned, after attending it virtually, I feel like I got more out of it than when I attend a convention in person,
Oh
really.
wow. Well
Yeah.
then they really did a good job scheduling
I
that.
They really did. I mean, I felt like I attended way more presentations. I wasn't monkeying around, walking around, being distracted or whatever. I literally made sure I was present at everything I wanted to see. Wherein if I was actually there in person, I don't know if I would have been as good at that.
Right. Do you have any funny stories from attending this one or previous crime cons?
Well, I will tell you, I don't know how funny it is, but I saw. Well,
Or favorite notable?
oh my gosh, there are so many. I mean, Chris Hansen was absolutely hilarious. I mean, if you know him from To Catch a Predator days, where he was, you know, uh, undercover with the perverted justice people who would act as like the
Mm-hmm.
sexy decoys online and lure all the creepy guys into the houses. He told a really interesting story that I'd never heard before. And it was one of the first episodes they had ever filmed of To Catch a Predator. And they were set up in a house and, they had the decoys in another room running these chats and they're literally printing the chats off, so Chris has his notes. So when the creep comes into the house, he can say, well, according to this, you asked her if she could blah, 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 blah. Kind of how the drill was with To Catch a Predator. Well, apparently they were getting so many guys coming to the house. They had 3 coming in at one time. So when the guy comes in, they're trying to waylay the other guys outside. When the guy comes in, Chris comes in with his notes and he's like, it says here that you told our decoy that you wanted to blah blah blah, and the guy's like, no, that wasn't me. So somebody
Oh
hands Chris a
no.
piece of paper and he takes a piece of, well, it says here that you wanted to meet the decoy, and he's like, no, that wasn't me. Then they handed him another piece of paper and he's like, well, it says here that you wanted to, and the guy's like, yeah, that was me, that was me, that was the one. So I mean, it just goes to show how many people they had piling in. I mean, you would never dream that when you were watching one of those shows, right? That there was, I mean, it was
No.
no shortage of people rolling through there.
So,
Yeah,
so the
so that
first
kind
thing
of, that was kind of funny.
that's terrifying to think that they got that many people in the honey trap. It's
Oh
just,
yeah.
and then coming all at one time. And then the second thought I have is those production assistants, the PAs, were just running around like mad. Like,
Can you
oh,
imagine?
that's disgusting and interesting at the same time.
It is. It is. It's
Yeah.
disgusting and interesting. One of those things that you can really find at Crimecon quite often.
And then you're with
The
all your peers who are just reacting the same way, going, "Holy what?" Like,
Oh yeah. I mean, and he had a lot of questions too. You know, people would stand up in the audience and they were like, you know, because I don't know if you know this, but he's also the executive producer for the Onision documentary that
oh
aired.
no.
It's about that YouTube talent, Onision, and how he was grooming young girls via his significant other. You know, she was kind of aiding him and getting these young girls into his house. Well, Chris Hansen has sort of singularly cracked that case. He got Onision demonetized and all these other things.
Wow.
There's actually a part 2 of that. And also, New to Catch a Predator is in the making right now. It's in the can. Apparently, they've shot it and they're still shopping it. So that should be out
Wow.
soon. I guess it really plays into the new you know, how what a more not technical, but just how we live in a world completely online now compared to like the original To Catch a Predator. I mean, that was way before a lot of social media, and you know, kids that are 10, 11, and 12 having social media accounts. He
Mm-hmm.
kept getting questions like, how do I make sure my 10-year-old is safe on social media? And it was basically like, your 10-year-old should not be on social media. He was very matter of fact about it, you know.
Yeah.
He was not mincing words. But
Yeah.
yeah, he was pretty entertaining. Gil Carrillo was really entertaining too, the cop from the Night Stalker case. He didn't talk a lot about the case, but he
Mm-hmm.
did just talk a lot about his life and his experience, and he was a really interesting guy. Um, Laura's presentation on the Toolbox Killers was awesome and spot on. I wish she would have had more time. I mean, there was just,
Mm-hmm.
she did the untold story, and there's so much that she went into that she's never, you know, really talked about, you know, on really live before. But
Yeah. It's no. It
and
was
they
just
also
it's
ran
so
the,
tricky. Oh, sorry.
that's okay. They closed her presentation with a trailer of her new show though, that's going to land on Oxygen this fall. So that was
Oh,
really neat
that's
to get the
good.
first teaser of it. Yeah, it was like goosebumps. Yeah, that was fun. That
Yeah.
was really fun.
That's
Yeah.
super exciting. What's the name of, for those who may not know, what's the name of the new show on Oxygen that she's doing? The Toolbox
Uh,
Killer one.
I, we are not really sure of the actual name that they're going to go with, but we think it's just going to be the untold story of the Toolbox Killers. We're not
Okay.
100% sure yet, though. As soon as
Okay.
I find out, I'll be sure to let everybody know and promote it vigorously on
Oh
all my
yeah.
platforms. Yeah,
Yes.
but
Yes.
it's shot, but I think it's gonna be airing during the fall season. So
Okay. Yeah.
we're excited about that. Um, I was really excited too about the whole cast from, I mean, not cast because it was a documentary, but the players from Don't F with Cats. That was really interesting. And the projects that they're doing are, they're doing some really important work in terms of animal abuse and tracking down people who abuse animals on the internet, actual
Uh-huh.
kind of boots on the ground work and getting these people prosecuted and actually
Oh.
Yeah. I didn't know that there was a law on the books that Obama had actually put in place in regards to a certain type of, I'm not going to go too deeply into it because people are very affected by this, but it's a certain type of animal abuse that is prevalent on the internet. And that he actually wrote that in to make it it's a federal level felony. So that's
Wow.
going to be immediate prison time. So they're working a lot with, I don't know if you're familiar with that documentary, but what they did was they had seen some videos online and they were able to pinpoint the location of the individual that was putting these videos up online of animal abuse. What
Mm-hmm.
happened was this individual went on to commit a murder, very
Oh.
heinous murder, and also broadcasted it on the internet.
Oh no. They made like
They
a live
tracked,
action snuff film.
absolutely, they tracked him down. His name was Luca Magnotta. They tracked him down to his actual coordinates of where he was just based on things in the background of his apartment and various other things. So they're very good at internet sleuthing. And that kind of became their forte. And with that film and the success of it, they were able to sort of parlay that into taking it to the next level and tracking down all of these creepy people that make these horrific videos and
Mm-hmm.
really, get justice and throw the book at these people, hopefully. Because, that is one of the common things that, Dr. John White said, while there is no one common denominator for serial killers, animal abuse is a very high up there with these guys
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
girls. So
Yeah.
it's very
It's one of the
important
red
to,
flags.
it is one of about,
Yeah.
what is it, 164 red flags.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
I didn't
Yeah.
realize there were
So,
that many red flags. But I'll
yes,
have
there are a
to
lot.
look up that documentary because I could see why it would be one of the more popular um, talks during the event, because really animal abuse is something that everyone has an opinion on, and it's generally very bad. And
It
wanting to hear
is.
how to help stop it, I think everyone loves their pet dog, cat, bird, rabbit, ferrets, whatever, but and no one wants to see them harmed. So
No,
that's a good cause to get behind.
it
Just
is. And the project's called Animal Beta Project. That's the name of their new project. That's the one where they're kind of taking this to the next level and really trying to get justice for these poor little animals and get the books thrown at all these creeps that do this for I don't know what reason. Yeah. But
perverse reasons, ones we probably would never understand. So, well, on that fun note, and fun in the most sarcastic tone, Christina
yes.
and Jen, why don't you join us?
I have lots to
Hello.
say.
Yeah,
Hey.
I bet you do. Go right ahead, Jen.
Okay, the people that did Don't F with Cats are freaking amazing. And when I watched that, because I kept hearing about it on all my podcasts I was listening, I'm like, fine, I'll watch it. They don't really show the animals, the videos that he posted, but I still had a hard time watching those. So I just kind of fast forwarded through those. But I'm glad it, God loved them for being able to look at that stuff more than once to track these jerks down. And
Absolutely.
I
And when they
just
did the
go ahead.
I was just going to say when they did, because they did another breakout session about the Animal Beta Project,
Mhm.
just about that. And they literally have to watch these videos hundreds of times to get clues in the background about where these people are. You know what I mean? It can be the most
Mhm.
innocuous thing. It could be a piece of newspaper on the floor. They stop the image, they zoom in, blah, 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 blah. And, one of the most important things they said is, a lot of people did have that really visceral reaction to Don't F with Cats. And they
Mhm.
said, no way, I'm not going to watch that. I don't care if they barely show anything, I'm not watching it. But their
Mhm.
real point was as long as people stick their head in the sand about these kind of things,
Right.
people get away with it. And they also
Yeah.
escalate the behavior.
Yes.
It
That's exactly what he
escalates.
did. Yeah.
Mhm.
Wow.
It does. And it
Well,
does.
and I was talking to you earlier before we started recording about watching marathoning Deadly Women, and throughout time, everybody they either underestimate women that are going to be killers, or they just can't wrap their head around it. And it's just like, they can't, you have to be willing to look inside the darkness, right? You got to be willing to see it and accept it and go, wait a minute, that's not right. I need to do something about it. I've never been faced with that decision. Not yet. Hopefully never. But I think most of the time they were just like, I can't possibly fathom that. So therefore it can't possibly happen. And this person can't possibly be doing what they're doing, or what, but people tell you who they are. They tell you what they're going to do. And when they post stuff like that on the internet, a lot of killers, they want credit for their work. They want to be known. Yeah. So believe them when they tell you something like that.
And it's the same with just family abuse too. Like people are going to just stick their heads in the sand while they watch their neighbors beat their kids. And just like,
but there is something about animal abuse, though. There really is. I mean, people love true crime. They love all these shows. But the second you put an animal, people flip out. And that I'm guilty of it, But the minute you do that, the minute the animal abusers escalate in order to get attention and make it more and more heinous, and it really proliferates. People really need to be cognizant of this. I'm not suggesting we go on and just start looking at these heinous videos, but in an instance like Don't F with Cats, I think that should be required viewing for everybody. I mean,
it really should. Well, and didn't they come to, it's been a minute since I've seen it, but they came to a realization at some point that we have to do something about this. No one else is going to do anything about it. Oh
yeah.
We have to do it. And then they just took it on, and God love them. God love them. They took that jerk down.
They did. They did. And it was happening in Canada, and they're down here in the United States. It's John Green, by the way, and Deanna Thompson, and she was Body Movin'. She went by her sock puppet account on Facebook. Remember, it was Body Movin', but her real name's Deanna Thompson, and he's John Green. And they were just two people from different parts of the U.S. that had really good brains for this, attention to detail. They were great at Google Maps. They had a great working knowledge of random things like the vacuum cleaner. Remember the vacuum cleaner that kind of cracked case, the particular vacuum cleaner, but you really kind of have to watch it. But it is a great armchair solve. It's a great armchair group of people that solve something, and those are always great stories,
Well, and when I first heard about it, I didn't think it was true crime. I had no idea until I watched it. I was just like, oh, that is not what I was expecting.
It doesn't sound like one. I mean, when you read the entire title, it's Don't F with Cats, Hunting an Internet Killer, but Hunting an Internet Killer is the secondary title.
Yep, so never even heard of it. Never even heard of that secondary title.
Yeah.
I keep seeing it recommended, but I don't know if I have the stomach to watch it or not if they were actually hurting cats.
They only show about 18 seconds of the beginning of one video. You can get the gist of what happens, but they don't show the entire thing.
No.
They specifically limited this way. They cut it way down. They just wanted the audience to get the gist of how heinous everything was.
So these people were murdering cats?
Yes. Yeah. And then he went on to murder a person.
Individual. Whoa. Yes.
That's just really, I mean, both are
Luca Magnotta. Yeah. Luca Magnotta.
Well, and I think at one point he found out where Donna lived, didn't he? Wasn't he harassing her?
Well, he found out where she worked. Remember the video walking through the casino that he posted on from the YouTube? Yes. He found out where she worked because she's like a computer programmer in Vegas. And she works with one of the big hotels down there. So it's great. You guys have to watch it. It's a docu-series. I mean, there are several episodes, but it is really good. Well, and you can literally just turn your head away.
Yeah, I had to hit the 10-second until it was gone.
There you go. Yeah,
I'm like, I know what's coming, and I still don't want to see it.
Didn't Jeffrey Dahmer murder animals before he murdered people?
Absolutely. He had his own little shed, just all of his bones and all sorts of animal abuse. And I'm sure they're still digging up bones up there in Ohio, somewhere.
Yeah. A lot of them have brain injuries also as children.
Oh, interesting. Absolutely. Is that true?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Absolutely.
even as an adult, say you get into a really bad car accident and you get a bad injury, the swelling or whatever happens to your brain, it can change your personality. Sometimes it changes you for the better. Sometimes it changes you for the worse. Like I also binge watched Homicide Hunter not too long ago, and I think one of his cases, this guy murdered his entire family, and Detective Joe Kenda said that he had gotten a head injury or had a stroke or something happened with his brain, and after that he completely changed and ended up murdering his entire family.
And it's not just serial killers. It's professional sports players, professional wrestlers. You hear this all the time. You know, people with multiple concussions that go completely off the deep end. They kill people themselves. A wrestler killed his entire family. His brain was donated to science. It was massively concussed time and time again.
Yeah.
So.
And COVID can do this too.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, this is one of the big things where people are just like, oh, well, my kids can get COVID. They'll survive. COVID can and has shown in a few cases to cause brain injury and create kind of like a Alzheimer's-like condition really early on or expedite things like that. So yeah, there are cases. So like one reason why my family never left the house was we're like, no, we're not going to risk that. So
no,
just something to know for down the road in like just a few years, we'll see what kind of cases happen and if that's involved at all. So on a different note, there's a cruise. There's a Crimecon cruise and you wanted to go, Christina.
Well,
but with COVID and the diseases.
Well, there is that. I mean, I wonder if the cruise industry is going to survive. You know, is going to get back to where it was because people in general get sick on cruises a lot.
Or I've been really sick on cruises way before COVID. You know, with the norovirus. No, seriously, I had the norovirus. I was in my room for 5 days. Yeah, it was terrible.
Because you're in close quarters with a bunch of people.
Yeah, it's
recirculated air.
Well, and you have to realize that they turn over those ships in 4 hours before more people get back on. Those ships never get. Yeah, those ships run for 6 months out of the year nonstop, and it's a 4-hour turnover time to reload everything and put new passengers on. You are not thoroughly cleaning a vessel that large in 4 hours. So, yeah, it's pretty heinous. And this is pre-COVID. I wasn't. I've been on enough cruises for a lifetime. So, been there.
You want to hear something really disgusting?
You found bed bugs on a cruise?
No, I got airsick on an airplane once. Really bad turbulence. I get motion sickness, and it made me projectile vomit, which I've never done in my life.
Whoa!
Well, I had a layover. And I went into the bathroom to throw up, and my tongue hit the side of the toilet. Which made me
and you
even more. I survived.
No.
I survived. This was long time ago. But yeah. So yeah, I don't like getting sick when I travel, but I always do.
Yeah, I've got to learn how to drive better because Jed was getting motion sick when I was driving.
But it was in your hybrid, not so much in the Civic, but the Civic has been totaled.
Yeah. But you know, when I took our little kitten Bob to the vet, and when we got him from the rescuers, they said that the rescuer said, you know, he's a little bit sensitive to being in the car. And our vet's only a mile away. And the second I took him out of the car, he threw up because he was motion sick. Oh, poor little cat. I mean, fortunately, I had a towel in there or whatever, but we've seriously digressed here.
Yeah.
Really?
Well, we were talking about animals.
Dramamine.
Yeah, everybody needs to take their Dramamine. But I don't know if you can give it to cats. But anyway, so is there any chance you'd ever be a guest at one of these?
Who, me?
Yeah, like how do they?
I doubt it.
Or do they just like have like the Dateline NBC level guests or whatever?
I mean, it's gotten so popular through the years, and it's such big names. I mean, Dr. Phil was there. I
Wow.
mean, yeah. I mean, so yeah, I doubt I'm going to be in the company of Dr. Phil in the near future.
You never
Even
know, though.
though, I mean, you
Yeah.
never know. But yeah, Nancy Grace, Dr. Phil. I know in past years, Keith Morrison was there. Josh Mankiewicz was there virtually. Chris Hansen, of course, was there. And then you've got a lot of the victims' families, like Beth Holloway, Natalie Holloway's mom, and Ron Goldman's sister. Yeah. So it really is mostly either high level academics, doctors that are forensic psychologists, psychology professors that have studied serial killers, people with knowledge to the inner workings of the case, people like Laura Brand, other people that have worked on like the Austin bomber case. That was a really interesting symposium. They had all of the police footage and all of the like the night camera footage of when they actually caught this guy and he blew himself up. They had all of that footage from the helicopter that's never been seen before. So you get people that have lots of law enforcement officers, victims' families, the academics, the academic types, and then just the sheer people that are kind of exalted to now TV personalities, right? Like Nancy Grace, even though she's an attorney, she's now, her personality in the true crime world kind of eclipses, her law background. So people like that. So it's pretty high level, and the more popular it gets, I can only imagine that it's going to get, more and more high level with the guests and the speakers and whatnot.
But they'll probably have more and more of these too, though. Like they could have more than just, and maybe as they have more of them, I mean, do they have
maybe?
Oh, go on.
I was going to say maybe eventually. I'm sorry, I got something on my. It'll become something like every city has its own.
Yeah,
like
I was
Comic-Con.
just thinking that.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm looking through the post. What's it? Sorry. Wow, that was just word jumble coming out of my mouth. The guy. Oh, never mind. Just ignore everything that I'm saying. I'm just looking at the guest. Leslie Rule. There we go. She's one of the guests too, and her mother was Rule, who did the Ted Bundy, wasn't it?
Anne Rule.
Yeah, Anne Rule. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And Leslie Rule's actually quite a prolific paranormal author as well. So she crosses both genres. Sorry, you can just ignore everything I just said. It was just nonsense.
No, and they have a lot of crossover too. I mean, they have some really interesting stuff. They had a guy there who has spent the last 20 years of his life trying to shut down the whole murderabilia market. He actually coined the term. His name's
I've never
Andy
heard of that.
Kahan.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
his
yeah.
name's Andy. Oh yeah. His name's Andy Kahan. And it was kind of interesting because he's one of the last presentations I saw, and he had all of this murderabilia there, by different, Green River Killer, this guy, that guy, the other guy. And a lady stood up in the audience and was like, what separates you from another murderabilia collector? Furthermore, what separates us, attendees of Crimecon, from this same kind of thing? I mean, we're all
not
sort of
supporting the
looking for
serial killer in jail, so he can
We're making
buy
them
cigarettes.
continuously famous and notable.
Well,
Right.
that's what her point was.
Yeah.
Just like,
Yeah.
we're also giving momentum to these, horrific
True.
things that happened, So I don't know. I thought that was kind of a neat little.
How did he respond?
Yeah.
That is a good question.
He said something to the effect of, well, if I've got it, no one else does. And then he said something really sort of trite, like, and someday I might just sell it all and make a whole lot of money.
Whoa.
Wouldn't that be perpetuating the problem?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this guy, the majority of his symposium was showing old clips from Geraldo, which I actually saw back in the day, this actual episode of Geraldo, which that was hysterical. That was like being in a time machine watching that. But it was when he was on Geraldo and something else. But anyway, it was kind of weird. And his collection isn't that great. He's got some hand tracings and one or two pieces of art, a tuft of hair, and something else. So it's not like he has some sort of big burgeoning collection.
It feels like he squandered a really good topic.
I know. I was ready to really get some levity and I don't know. Frankly, it probably would have been more interesting to have some of the guys that he had previously been on stage with on the Geraldo episode, who were the actual collectors trying to, explain why they did this. But
Yeah.
there's a whole
So-
there's a whole series on that on Amazon called Serial Killer Culture, which is very interesting.
Yeah.
And all those
Really,
guys
I'll
are
have to
on
watch
show.
that. That's one thing that do they do things on, because one thing you kind of touched on was this sort of amateur sleuth movement, and especially as I mean, a lot of times people talk about these crime cases, but a lot of times police don't have that big a budget to research this sort of stuff. So do they give people advice and resources for if they want to do amateur sleuthing? Is that something that police departments discourage or encourage?
They discourage, very much so.
So they don't like the
discourage
Sherlock
it.
Holmesing.
Yeah, they're not interested. They want you to take any information you have and go directly to the police department with it. They don't want you proliferating anything you see on any website or social media. They really did touch on that a lot when the family of Libby German was there about the Delphi murders. They touched a lot on that because I guess they've just been besieged with information and rumor, innuendo, Facebook pages people have set up, discussing the case. And, the cousin got really up in arms about it. She was probably about my age. Her sister was there who was younger and grandma was there, but the cousin was probably in her 40s. And she was just like not having any of it. She said she eventually had to just remove all of her social media because she got to the point where she was ready to go ballistic. And, understandably so. So the general message with that during the Q&A, which was led by Derek Lavaseur, who's a cop turned private investigator turned TV show host, was really, we're not into the armchair people, but it's like Jensen. I mean, I know Holes is a cop, but Billy Jensen, that's kind of how he started it. He was a Facebook armchair sleuth that solved that crime, at the corner market there in New York and did the Facebook ads. And so, I mean, I think there's a difference between actual really good vetted information versus a bunch of rumor, conjecture, and just general BS of sort of the cackling on Facebook, and I think
and look at Michelle McNamara, for example.
Oh yeah,
she is like you. She was a true crime blogger. She was obsessed with it, but she really had a detective mind. And both Billy and Paul have said that. And Paul Holes has said multiple times that if it had not been for her, we wouldn't have gotten where we got with the case. So with Golden State Killer. So I think there are people out there that can do those things, but there are also people out there that think they can and they can't. And, the people that really know what they're doing aren't contacting the family for personal details.
Absolutely. They are working with law enforcement. Yeah, they're coming with their I's dotted and their T's crossed with actual good information. Absolutely.
Yeah. Because it's serious, heavy responsibility to be talking about anything true crime, especially if the family and the victims are still alive. And just as a true crime author, you're very cognizant of how you're treating everyone you're talking about, especially if they're still alive. But it doesn't matter if they're alive or dead, really. What I like about Crimecon is the fact they're including victims' families, survivors, the police officers and lawyers handling these cases. And also in some years, they also have people who had been incarcerated and through evidence have been released. So they're talking about how they were involved in these situations. And that's also a really good and not very much spoken about perspective on a lot of these cases. So I like how well-rounded it is. Someday we should all try to go to one of these events.
There's really something for everybody, really. I mean, regardless of what your interest level is, or if you're like a diehard law enforcement person, if you're more into forensics and the academia, I mean, there's really something for everyone. You know, like I was telling Kat, I stayed busy. I attended like back-to-back symposiums much more than if I would have been there in person. I know for sure.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I would have been off,
Well,
hey, let's go get a burrito. We're in Austin. Or,
Well, and
hey, there's a
travel
taco
time
truck out
just
there.
to get there. Yeah.
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 Well, yeah, hopefully because they had such a good internet presence this year, maybe they'll be able to keep making it dual, where you have people there live, but you also can have a large audience who aren't necessarily in the States and able to watch these.
Yeah.
Or in like
Or able to travel to Austin.
or able to
Orlando,
travel to
or-
Austin.
Yeah.
You're lowering that gateway basically, or that threshold, so more people could experience this instead of having to travel.
Yes, for sure. And I got a little swag bag because I did the
Ooh.
VIP virtual package. Let me show you guys what I got.
Oh yes, show us your goodies.
I got this
Ooh.
little bag. Okay.
Oh
True crime
wow,
24/7.
Nice.
that is
Okay,
super
and then I got
awesome.
these little socks, which I haven't worn yet, but it says on the bottom, shh, I'm watching crime shows. So those will be cute.
You need to.
I got Carrie Rawson's new book, Serial
Oh,
Killer's
nice.
Daughter. This is BTK's daughter. I'm about halfway through
Ooh.
this. This is good. Yeah. Some stickers, a button, some nice little glossy true crime, compliments of people and oxygen, and a sweatshirt. So
Oh,
I'm
nice.
Oh.
I can dork out at the next Crime Con with my ensemble. So
Yeah.
So do
Well,
what's
I
that?
was just gonna say, I was jealous your friend got a picture with the guy that plays Kenda on Homicide Hunter, because
Oh
I
my
started
gosh.
following her on Instagram. I'm like, go for Kenda.
Yeah, I can't remember that guy's name, but yeah,
I
he's
can't
that-
either, but I was
I saw that too.
Yeah.
I'm sure the ladies were all over him. He seems like a
Mm.
popular kind of, and you know,
Hey,
the
there-
demographic, there are so many women there. It is a very, you
Yeah.
know, females 23 to 47 kind of demo. So
So do
Is it Carl Marino?
yes,
yes.
yes.
There
so
we
do they
go.
feel
There
like
you go, Carl.
do they feel like in this age of social media that it's easier to catch these criminals, or is there so many red herrings it gets complicated?
I would think maybe not as much with social media per se, but I think this genetic genealogy and how popular this has become with people like Cece Moore and, you know, solving all of these cases. So many people, you know, how we were talking about armchair detectives, they're taking up this as a hobby and they're learning genetic genealogy. I myself am in a class right now with the Redgraves.
Wow.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I'm learning genetic genealogy, and that's because I'm already like an ancestry genealogical buff. I've had ancestry.com since 98, since it almost first came out. So I'm really into that. My brain kind of moves along those channels. So now I'm taking sort of the forensic aspect of it and trying to learn that. So that's another thing that people can do. And I think social media proliferating these messages, you know, and people are able to get involved more in doing something that could actually help. I think in that sense, it definitely helps more than, you know, a couple crazy Facebook groups about a case or something would hinder an investigation. I think in the long run, stuff like this is really going to help because a lot of people can use their free time to learn genetic genealogy and volunteer for, you know, the Doe Network, Doe Trans Task Force. That's another thing for trans people that often get swept under the rug in these cases. I know the Redgraves work a lot on that task force. So just lots of important different elements, and social media really helps proliferate that information and it gets people excited. You know, they think these killers are sleeping with one eye open, and they should be, because we're coming for you.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, that's really cool. That sounds like I mean, if there's one close, I'd definitely be up for like going for a day and seeing, you know,
Oh, yeah.
what it was like.
Yeah.
You know, because it does seem like it has is the popularity driven more by, now this is a kind of a weird question, but do you think the podcasts have driven the interest more than even the TV shows have, like My Favorite Murder and that sort of thing? Make
I
people
would say
feel
yes.
I think it's the demographic, for a younger demographic, for sure. The podcasts are responsible for getting a whole new crop of younger people
Mhm.
interested in this topic. But there are plenty of people that are almost 50, my age, that have been into this way before podcasts ever happened. And we're also present there. I would say the bigger demographic at these crime cons are really the older people.
Yeah.
These aren't cheap. It's easy to spend $3 or $4 grand by the time you're done with the flying and the hotel and the tickets and but I would definitely say podcast has driven true crime immensely in terms of the younger generation. But true crime it's popular with a lot of people, and as you can see, I mean, there's channels now dedicated, and I'm not a millennial, I'm not a Gen Zer, but I know they don't watch a lot of
No,
cable
they don't.
television. Right.
Well,
So
true
somebody's
crime's-
watching this.
Yeah, true crime has always been interesting to any community. I mean, you can look back at Jack the Ripper, you can look back at even before then, all across the world, the society wanted to watch out for crime, and especially very heinous crime. You're right. Millennials and Zoomers don't watch too much TV. I don't even have cable. So I can't watch, even if I wanted to, unless I had a subscription. A lot of the true crime shows, I can't watch them because they're not on Netflix and they're not on Amazon Prime streaming. A lot are, but some aren't. A lot of the Oxygen shows I don't think are. And but True Crime Garage, my favorite murder. I don't know why I always mess up their name. Crime Junkies, all of those at Murder Squad. They are on podcasts. They're everywhere that you can listen to podcasts. And people like myself, I'm an older millennial. I listen to podcasts while I'm working. And also during COVID, when we're all shut down, I think listening to crime podcasts skyrocketed double digits. It became the most popular genre of podcast for a few months, especially during the winter, I think. I don't have the stats to back up that statement, but definitely just looking at rankings, it seemed to be that way.
Well, I guess it kind of is always been an obsession. Like, I mean, you think about like Agatha Christie and like all of these books, mystery novels are a huge genre.
Murder
and what
She
is that?
Wrote.
Yeah, and
Murder,
what is
She
that?
Wrote.
Those are all armchair sleuths that solve crimes. So I think everybody.
Well, up until really the late 1800s, early 1900s, it had to be an armchair sleuth who solved crimes because people who had the observation skills to do this, there was no law enforcement. It wasn't organized. So it was basically whoever was in charge and their friends. So
Well, you got to picture like this sort of like if you watch, and you were talking about one being in the UK. I think if you get BritBox or if you get Acorn, like 90% of British television is crime shows. They love it, and so I could picture like everybody's dream is to be Hercule Poirot or Miss Marple or whatever. And so like when you have these people solving crimes and stuff, they're sort of channeling their dream to be Jessica Fletcher, or whatever.
Right.
I want to be Jessica Fletcher. I want people dying around me. No, I really don't. But
what I like about them is you can kind of get some sort of insight into why and what makes these people tick. Like since I've started listening, like I've always been interested in serial killers and things, but then I started listening to My Favorite Murder and I just went deep dive. And the patterns that I've been seeing throughout everything, not that, and it's fun. It's interesting to look back at things that happened 20 years ago or 100 years ago that have some sort of ending. It's really hard to do the unsolved cold case
well,
stuff.
the reason why we like that, at least my take, is during COVID, we need resolve. We need to know that there's an ending
bad guy
to something.
Caught.
Yeah.
And so often it doesn't happen, but maybe, with a lot of this stuff, maybe they will get more of these things solved properly. Amy, have you ever thought about like I always enjoy reading your posts on Facebook for Skeleton
yeah.
I mean, they are actually some of the most interesting posts in my feed, and I find
Yes.
I feel like I'm always learning things.
Yes.
Have you thought about doing a book? Because you put so much thought into your posts. I mean, I know not all of these are the ones that you do deep dive searches in, but have you thought about doing a book or something like that?
Maybe a little. I've thought about it. I don't know. This is very much just like a light hobby for me. I don't take anything too seriously. I'm a Virgo. I can be very into something for 3 or 4 years, feel like I master it and move on and take on something totally different. I've been that way my whole life. So I try not to get too attached to anything in particular, but I've thought about it. I think I've got 110 different pieces I've written on my blog at this point, and I know you can self-publish these days and do all that stuff, but a lot of times you end up with a spare room filled with books. I don't.
That is a
I don't
risk.
know. Yeah. So unless I have some real, dying urge to do something, I sort of keep it light and just see where the day may take me. See what opportunities come my way. But I don't spend a lot of time really drilling down to, have a big career move or anything like that. I just like to keep it light and keep it fun and keep it a hobby, because once I go past that point, then it's not quite as
fun.
enjoyable.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, because you've recently been doing writing for Oxygen. So what was that like? Is that something you want to do more of?
Well, I've been helping Laura with the case. I was doing lots of research. So I was basically spending my days going down the rabbit hole, tracking down people from 40 years ago that were involved in the Bittaker and Norris case. Everything from just random witnesses that were listed in police reports to actual victims to people that used to hang out at the Scott Motel where they lived. So I was really tracking down people. I was tracking down convicts. I was doing a lot of tracking down, and then I was helping Laura with a little bit of the writing in terms of proposals and whatnot in regards to that show that she landed. So yeah,
Awesome.
lots of research. Research is something I never tire of. I can definitely say that with, self-assuredness. I can always just spend time alone, going down the rabbit hole and researching something. I've always enjoyed that. So yeah.
Well, sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. No, I was just going to say, anytime something like that comes my way, I will always take it on, to do some research, to assist in something like that. That's why the genealogy appeals to me. It's something I can work on, myself. I'm very much like kind of a solo flyer. So I like things that I can just do, on my own.
I was just going to say, I always read your posts right before I go to bed. And I am also often asking myself, what is wrong with people? And I'm like, all right, go to bed.
I know that's the running question in my head all the time. Hey, did you see the lady with the 8-inch eyelashes this morning though? That was kind of a
my goodness.
So gross. Well, because I saw the picture first, I'm like, what is on her face? And then I read it. I'm like,
I was just like, how does she pin those back? Like I was just thinking of just the mechanics of it, of living with them. I was just kind of,
I didn't see that one. I'm gonna have
heavy?
I'm gonna go look at that right now.
I was flabbergasted when I saw it. I'm like, how does that even happen for an eyelash to grow that long? I can barely get mine over 2 millimeters.
Or how it doesn't just like, I mean, because mine fall out all the time. It just,
how did they not get in her eyes? I like it. A Chinese woman broke her own Guinness World Record when she, with her longest eyelash, was measured at 8 inches long.
Wow, that is really
in the
creepy.
photo. It's just going right down her cheek. It looks like she's crying her own eyelashes. But
wow,
it's.
I don't like that stuff, like the hair and the nails and any.
Yeah, the big long twisty nails. I used to be obsessed with those when I was a kid in the Guinness Book of World Record. Yeah,
it's so gross. And I also do watch Dr. Pimple Popper. So It's really
What?
nasty.
That's the one thing I cannot watch, you guys.
I was against it forever. And then one night I decided to start watching it. And then I was up till 5 o'clock in the damn morning watching video after video. And now I can't stop. But it's only her. Like, I have gone on the tag thing on Instagram. Don't do that. Just don't. It's gross.
Don't worry. I can't even watch her. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's my trypophobia or something. I can't handle.
I can't
And
watch
the
it either.
only reason I watch her is because she is very informative and she really, really goes out of her way to help her patients.
Mm-hmm.
And she is really changing their lives. And that is what I like about it. And it's just weird watching stuff come out of things. But it's only skin deep, right? It's only skin deep. Like, I couldn't watch open heart surgery or anything like that.
See, I can watch all that. I can watch the 600-pound life, the entire slice and dice, the excess skin removal.
Oh, no.
But that pimple popping, I don't know what that is. I can't do that one.
I know that goes right into that body horror kind of stuff that makes me queasy.
Yes.
So, nope.
See, I can watch all of it when it's fake. Like all the horror stuff in movies, it doesn't bother me. But even a little bit, even now, it's so realistic. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't feel right. But I definitely cannot watch the real stuff. Like my best friend, she is a surge tech. And I tell her not to tell me stories about work because she wants to tell me stories about work. And I'm like, no. And she'll hint at things like, we got splashed today.
Oh my God.
Don't say things like that to me. Please
We
do
got
not
splashed.
like
That's a t-shirt. That's a t-shirt slogan.
My sister has literally made me turn around and vomit from the stories that she has
Is she
told.
a nurse?
Yes. She's a nurse practitioner. Now she's in private practice as a nurse practitioner, but for 20 years she worked at UC and was assisting in all sorts of, oh dear God. I mean, talks of having to wear hazmat suits because people were just crawling in bugs and maggots on their bodies.
Whoa.
I mean, the most ungodly crap you have ever heard of in your entire life. Like, oh my God. I would be like, Tara, no, please. And she loves it. She's my little sister. She thinks it's funny to push me over the limit like this. So next thing I know, I'm in the bathroom.
Well, I think
my friend doesn't push it that far.
I think if you do it for a living, you probably get desensitized in a big way. I mean, obviously, you have to be.
You compartmentalize a lot of it.
Yeah. I mean, I had a friend that was training to be an EMT, and the people that do that, they're into it. Like
she's into it.
Yeah,
my friend too. Yeah.
I mean, they hated when they had to go on calls that were like nothing. Like they liked the huge trauma. That for them was exciting. I mean, I guess you get kind of addicted to rescuing people, and
well,
God
adrenaline rush.
Yeah,
we need
God
them.
they're here. Yeah,
I hope I never need them.
Oh, totally. But well, it's been great talking to you, Amy, again.
Yeah,
it's always wonderful to have you on the show. And next time we have you on, we'll talk about the murder that we'd kind of talked about talking about.
Yes, we will. I said it's kind of nice to speak about something that happened this century, much less just the weekend before last.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
Well, one day we have to do a show because you said we didn't have to always do true crime. Maybe we'll do a show on just really weird stuff.
I love weird stuff too.
Yeah,
that's right up my alley.
I think we should do like a potluck weird stuff show, and like because you write about it every day, and like I said, we love seeing your posts, and like just pulling up some of the really weird stuff would be cool.
Yeah, that would be cool. And hey, look at us tonight. We have no shortage of just random weirdness to share with one another. So.
That is true.
There's no end. I mean, I was just thinking on the chat before this, we were talking about like people we knew that had been involved in. I mean, I wonder how many people know people that have been involved in crime,
I know of one person, and I've only met her a couple times. Like, she's a really good friend of a friend of mine. And do you guys know? I mean, obviously, besides the case that you're talking about, I've never met at least not that I'm aware of people in like huge traumatic that have experienced huge traumatic events like murder or
Well, I had an aunt that was murdered.
you did?
Mhm.
Oh no.
My dad's
Oh,
youngest
what?
sister was murdered on New Year's Eve. She was an alcoholic and was beaten to death by her boyfriend, and he only got 5 years because it was reduced to manslaughter.
Oh.
It was in Florida, so that probably explains the
Yeah,
rules.
I had my
Sorry to
my
hear that.
stepfather was murdered and my
Mhm.
aunt was murdered. So I have murder, and I've got a lot of murder in my family. If you go back generationally, murderers, I should say. So
Wow.
if you look up the Spicers of Breathitt County, they were quite a clan down there. So
Well,
Maybe I just
yeah.
don't know my family history well enough.
it makes me think just how violent our society can really be because you
Yeah.
know when we were talking about that case, my brother's friend, and this was a very close friend. I mean, they were in the army together. They were in I mean, his mother was murdered, and they got, I guess Ohio gives some sort of settlement to people who have murdered parents.
Victims of violent
Yes.
crimes. Yeah.
And so he and
Aw.
his sister got a significant settlement from that. I mean, not that that makes up for it at all, but I can't imagine how traumatic for his best, you know, one of his best friends in school to get murdered then a couple years later. That would be, you know, so I mean, I would think that would be very triggering.
Yeah.
Mhm. I haven't.
Not that
There's no one in my family that's been murdered, but I've watched somebody commit suicide and attempt to suicide once. I've talked about this on the show already.
Mhm.
So.
Yeah,
Have
you
you?
had mentioned it was
Yeah.
at school.
Yeah, so
Yes, I
the survivor
remember.
was out at Indiana University. A jumper jumped off of a high building and landed in a canopy. So he broke both his legs, but he ultimately survived. The
Oh my
jumper
gosh.
was in front of a commuter train in Tokyo, and I
Mhm.
was in the front. So it was basically it was when the captain of the train, or the, what is this, that's not the right term, train captain,
Conductor.
thank you. He was up front and he was slowing down the train as we were coasting into one of the stations, and this was before a lot of the suicide prevention
Mhm.
railings had been put up, and the woman just ran and jumped right in front of the train, and I watched her splatter against the windshield, and he immediately closed the blinds between the cabin and his little conductor area. So if you ever wonder why I don't like body horror, it's because I've actually witnessed it happen.
No. If I had seen that
So
in person, I wouldn't know.
I
How
can't
do
do
you
it.
sleep at night? I wouldn't be.
There's a lot of little reassurances that I have to tell myself whenever I get into any little moving vehicle and the roadway,
Oh, cat.
anything.
Oof.
Yeah. So yeah, that's why I can't do that. A lot of people make fun of me because they're like, "You're a horror writer and you write comics about horror, and yet you
It's
can't watch it." And
different
I'm like, because I've
seeing
witnessed it. I've
in
seen,
person.
yeah, I've witnessed 2 people die and 1 person attempt it. It's I'm done. No more. Please live.
That's enough.
That's
You know,
enough.
it's like the videos of you see that go when an athlete breaks their leg or
Oh
limb,
gosh.
and people are fascinated by it, and I'm like, that is, no, you don't see this.
It's too much empathy. I'm just sitting there crying for them. I'm like, that has to hurt, and their families.
Well, yeah.
Anyway,
On that note,
on that, how do we always end on these extremely morbid notes? Like,
Because we're all
you're
morbid
talking
people.
because the topic tonight is Crimecon, and so
That's
it
true.
was unlikely that the discussion was going to end up on whipped cream and puppies.
Right.
Right.
Well, and I have
That
no
sounded
one
really
else
weird,
to talk
but I
to
didn't mean
about
together.
my
I meant
murder.
as separate entities.
you know, just for you, I am going to take a picture of Chewy with a dollop of whipped cream on his nose. And
Well,
we
that
can
would be
end the
cute.
segment
That would be
with
cute.
that.
Yes, let's put that picture in. I think that would be adorable.
So
That will cheer
everyone,
up everybody.
yes. So thank you, Amy, for joining us tonight and telling us about Crimecon 2021. And here's to future Crimecons that may we all join them.
Yes, for sure. It was a great time. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks
And
for being.
before we completely jump off, please tell our listening audience about your wonderful blog, The Skeleton Key Chronicles, and where they can find you.
Yeah, don't forget to follow me on social media. I have a Facebook page called the Skeleton Key Chronicles where I post random creepy stories, true crime, and just general weirdness on a daily basis. You can also find all my original content on my blog at www.theskeletonkeychronicles.com.
Yes. And
Yay.
you too can enjoy the 8-inch long eyelashes and other strange stories that Amy
Yes.
finds from around the internet. Oh, thank you everyone for joining us on this wonderful episode. Okay, wonderfully more. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Hometown Haunts podcast. We'll see you next week and stay curious. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And before we leave, we need to read 2 hometown haunts. You don't have to stay
I
on
know.
for that, Amy. We're gonna read
Yeah,
2.
I was just finishing this little segment.
Yeah, we're doing.
Thanks
2,
again.
Yeah, we're gonna
Yeah.
be doing 2 hometown haunts for the next 2 because I'm going out of town next week. So your episode's going to be on next week, and the episode that we recorded before is going to be on this week. It's my husband.
Awesome.
It's my husband and my 30th anniversary, so we're going up to
Oh
Vermont.
my gosh.
Oh,
congratulations.
wow. Well, happy early anniversary.
Yeah,
Congratulations on 30 years.
Yeah, it's a week from today. So, and actually,
wow.
we actually say it's 30 murder-free years.
Yeah.
It's a good way
Well,
to look at
that's
it.
You would be surprised at how often spouses resort to murder.
No,
Or
I
at
wouldn't.
least just because I'm in a deep dive. Well, okay.
He's like,
Never
no, I
mind
wouldn't.
then. Nope, I get it. Okay. Are you trying to tell us something, Christina?
I think probably most people are surprised it doesn't happen more often.
Right.
Well, that's true.
Exactly. Especially during COVID. Ay, ay, ay.
Well,
Yeah.
I wonder if
I
that's
have
why
seen a
people
lot of
started listening more because of
and
that.
since we're not this isn't going to be in the show, but I've actually seen at least 2 or 3 couples get divorced like just the
Aw.
beginning of this year, and I think it is they've not been around each other when you've been at home locked with someone that long.
Well, yeah.
You know, you
Yeah.
may find out that you've drifted apart more than you thought, or who knows what it is that causes the catalyst. But I've seen at least 3 couples split.
Yeah.
Wow.
Man,
Since
that's hard.
COVID.
It's hard being around people all day
Mhm.
endlessly.
I
mean,
am
love
extremely
my cat.
territorial.
Yeah, I mean, Troy and I
yeah.
have always worked out of the house together, so I
Yeah.
guess we've survived this far. We still got a
Well,
week.
yeah.
30 years is great. Congratulations
So,
again.
so like
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
if we disappear next week, then maybe you can do some sleuthing.
I will.
Yeah.
I hope
Where-
you're not
where are
near
you
any
going to
cliffs or
Vermont?
anything.
Yeah, he'll be like, let's get the picture. Just step back a little bit further.
Just back up a little bit more.
That really was a case, wasn't it? Some woman murdered
was.
her. Was
Yep.
it they were newlyweds though, weren't they, or something? It was.
Yeah,
There's been quite a
and-
few cases, I think.
Yeah, there is. There's been like
And there were photos. There were actual photos. And she was like near the ledge, and they like solved it with the
Yes.
lighting in the photos. It was really
Did she?
interesting
So she
case.
like took pictures after she murdered him and pretended like what happened?
No, he murdered her. She's the
Oh.
one that went off the edge. That's the one I'm. There's so many though. There
Yeah,
really
there's so
are.
many of
That's
them.
why I said don't go near any cliffs. I mean, it's so prevalent. It's
Or
like,
cruise
you know,
boats.
it's the
never
oldest
go
trick
on
in
a
the book.
first date in the woods.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot of interesting stories out there. But thanks again for coming on, Amy.
Oh my God. Thanks,
Yeah.
you guys. I will
Oh,
talk
thank
to you later.
All right, we'll see you later. Bye.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
For this
And
one.
so now this week's hometown haunt.
Yeah. So this week's hometown haunt is from Becky. And she writes, John and I were walking around downtown Cincinnati in the summer after we graduated in 1970. We were walking by CHM, or Cincinnati Music Hall. The doors were open and there was some beautiful music drifting outside. We took the liberty of going inside and watching and listening from an upper walkway. This CMH had recently undergone a renovation and it was absolutely beautiful. We had been there a few minutes and I felt a thud by my left foot. I looked down and about 6 inches away was my foot. Wait, what? I looked down and about 6 inches away from my foot was a very heavy plaster fleur-de-lis decoration that had fallen from the wall. at the corner of the wall and the ceiling. If it had hit me on the head, it would not have been pretty. Just mention I no longer gate crash after the incident. Okay. That's the end. I was so close to the end and I just kind of
They were not
lost it.
welcome.
They were not welcome.
I think it's
No.
interesting that they had just done a renovation in 1970. So one wonders how many skeletons they found then, because the one they just did, they found a lot more.
Yeah, it's every time they do any excavation, they just pull up skeletons and then
Do they know
rebury
about how
them
many people were buried there before?
They can give
music hall
estimates. They can give estimates, but the records are very spotty because, I mean, during outbreaks of cholera or yellow fever or anything, people were dying at such I want to say such a clip, so fast that there weren't always accurate records of how many people were put in each pit.
Yeah.
So, and it also depends on who was doing the note taking. A lot more people, like some people are much more good at taking notes, thorough, than others, and what kind of pressure were they under and all that. So
yeah,
I'm sure
Lots.
there's lots is an understatement, but yeah, it seems that she may not have been welcome, or thankfully maybe somebody prevented her from getting hurt.
That's a good way of putting it.
There's a lot of ghosts at the Cincinnati Music Hall. So I kind of want to say they probably prevented her from getting hurt instead of purposely trying to hurt her.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, thank you, Becky, for submitting that wonderful story, especially about our beloved Cincinnati Music Hall. And on that note, thank you for joining us, everyone. You can
Conan
follow...
is joining us.
Thank you, Conan, for joining us. And if you have a Twitter, Conan, I don't see why you wouldn't. You can follow us at Sin Cabinet Curio on Twitter, at Cincy Cabinet of Curiosities on Instagram. And if you have your own hometown haunt, spooky story, weird history, creepy cryptid, or anything fun like that you would like to share, you can share it to hometownhauntedmail@gmail.com. And with that, I'm Kat, that's Jen, and Christina. Thank you for joining us, and stay curious.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye-bye.